such a big crowd.
Shana Ritter lives out in the country by a small pond with a big dog.
You can just skip it and say it.
Shana currently teaches poetry and writing for I Use Lifelong Learning in the Time of Leaving.
Yes, sir. Is there no period there? This is
I
not
Use
him. This is
Lifelong
my
Learning.
fault. I take total responsibility.
In the Time of Leaving, her historical novel is available locally at Morgenstern's and on Amazon. Her recent poetry collection, A Remembrance of Water, is part of an online exhibit that can be accessed through her website, ShanaRitter.com. It's Shana, Shana-Ritter, R-I-T-T-E-R, so not one word, Shana-Ritter.com. She's received the Indiana Individual Artist Grant on multiple occasions.
Very good. Hello, Connie, thank you. Connie and Jim. This is for Connie and Jim. I'm trying to figure it's better with glasses, without glasses. There were two poems in the Ryder issue, which was an issue of poetry that came out recently, and there's a lot of amazing writing. Hi, Joan. There's a lot of amazing writing in that issue. So these next two poems were in the Ryder. This is called Mapping. There's the whole of something and the lines surrounding it. There is the depth and the curve and the bend that turns the curve into an angle not unlike an elbow, tilted precariously. Everything appears to have shifted, but it never changes what it is. There is the whole of something, and then there is the whole of something. And that thing is immutable, like a map draped over a table, the rectangle changed to a square, the map remaining a map, and it is the world. The edges cause waters and lands to spill into space, others come sharply into view, but the distance between Rio and Antarctica remains the same. The distance between Reykjavik and Puerto de Plata is still the same. Each kilometer, each mile along longitudes and latitudes measures as it has always measured. Even as the crease of the map creates a permanent line along the shore of Australia, the Great Barrier Reef falling away, and the clouds of fish seeking depths and hollows to hide in, the Arctic Circle has disappeared. Beyond the other edge, as the last group of narwhals make their way through rising seas and falling ice, past the calving glaciers and the stars falling into the brief spaces between light and light, near the center of this splayed map, the Atlantic currents, troughs, and channels cross and cross lines of souls fracture the deep. One woman rode her way alone by day and alone by night. She almost turned to salt. Islands break the blue to the south of the great Pacific between rifts of water where waves remember the curve of huge logs, hollowed the break of oars, voices chanting when the seas were still sung to. Water stays water, salt stays salt, even as the debris accumulates, even as the depths slip and rise and tides reach oceans, remain oceans. What changes are the curving lines, the cliffs once risen against the shores. Thank you. And I'll get those afterwards. Will you remind me, Hiromi? Thank you. I'll try not to step on it. Oh, look at that. You do everything. This was written during the pandemic, within the first year. There was a time in which we touched. Strangers pressed the soft skin of their palms together, fingers tucked in around each other's hands, skin upon skin, a naked touch of lines and veins, a sign of trust, a show that nothing was concealed. In other places, someone newly met would stretch their neck and reach their lips to brush another's cheek, once upon each side, faces so close you could not see anything. It was all feel and whisper. Sometimes, if you'd met before, each might reach their arms in embrace, drawing the bodies so close together, heartbeats would transverse the bones. It was mentioned that I did a series of poems, a chapbook for a residency I was involved in that took a text from the Old Testament, this one on Moses hitting the rock, and we did a modern day midrash, a discussion of that text based on geology, climate change, social anthropology, psychology, etc. I chose to center my work around Miriam, and this is the title poem, A Remembrance of Water. Once I reflected the sky, I was everywhere. The silver shoots of fish ran through me. I bore the weight of great sharks, the shiver of hinting light of minnows, and the whales, the whales, parted me with their stories. Then little by little earth encroached. I rose into air, currents folded into me, tides pulled my center deeper. The horizon's line, once so distant, defined, wave after wave washed the rocks, leaving rivulets of sweetness. I was sundered into strands, named ocean and sea, named river and lake, named pond and stream. Driven below, I lay beneath sand and stone. I hid in the hidden places, buried deep and deeper, not stone, but stone holding me. Still, the remembrance of water remained. The time when nothing could hold me but the sweetness of your lips, seeking me to quench your desire. You are suspended in me. I am suspended in you. Sing me out from the hidden places, and I will return. I will be beyond melody. I will let you drink me. We will rise. Thank you. And this very last poem, this is my favorite time of year. It is just before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Jewish high holy days, and this is the time of turning, a time to reclaim yourself and reflect and look back on things. The Jewish word for turning is called teshuvah, and the title of this poem is that, teshuvah. It's the season of purple flowers, asters, butterfly bush, the weed we have no name for, and yet unnamed it blooms from spring through the fall. Just months ago, in July, the ground was so saturated, water seeped through at every step. Now it is so dry, mud has become dust. It is the season of change. Not that all seasons aren't, but this one moves inward, light becoming shadow, shadow prolonging dusk, evening spilling into darkness, the long, quiet nights that might be brilliant with stars. This is the time of turning. Reflect on what has been, on what we wish to come, on what we want to let go of, on what is now gone. It is not a time of quiet waiting. The fields appear fallow, but are deep in the work of becoming, the earth constantly spinning, even as it seems to be standing still. Thank you.
One of Bloomington's finest and most outspoken poets, Hiromi Yoshida is the author of 3 poetry chapbooks, Icarus Burning, Epicanthus, and Icarus Redux. Her work has been included in the Inverse Poetry Archive and nominated for the Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, the Wilder Poetry Book Prize, the New Woman's Voices Poetry Prize, and the Gerald Cable Book Award. She teaches poetry for the Indiana Ryder Center while serving on the editorial board for Flying Island Journal, Plath Profiles, and Deidre. She is also the diversity consultant for the Writers Guild of Bloomington and will take charge of the Guild's last Sunday poetry reading series at the end of this month. Hiromi Yoshida.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Kyle. Let's see if I can read about glasses. Not unless I squint, so let's put on the reading glasses. I'll just read you poems that were published in Ryder magazine. If you haven't had a chance to pick it up, well, it looks like this. It's a very beautiful cover. It's also available online if you haven't been able to pick up the print issue. Okay. This one is called Poster Child, and it's about Lauren Spear. Poster child. She'd flung away her shoes like outgrown feet. She no longer needed to stay grounded in her own dissolving reality. The artificial beach at Kilroy's sports being the shallow quicksand. Desert of our collective thirst, into which she disappeared beyond the fluorescent flicker of buzzing cell phone screens. She remains a pretty blonde poster child for the missing white woman syndrome. The collective Bloomington memory emerging from tubs of hydrogen peroxide in DNA processing labs. The cautionary tale of ended and unended, eluding disclosure. She is the odd little puzzle piece drifting toward the accepted void. Grainy pearls spat out from grimacing oyster mouths. At the grinning swine, the bleached out signifier, the cheese that stands alone on unshod feet. Okay, and the second poem I'm going to read is about a colleague with whom I took an online workshop with Catherine Bowman. It's called Indiana Veteran. Enid, Oklahoma to St. Louis, Missouri, to Columbus, Indiana, to somewhere, Hawaii. Tropical flowers bloomed into algae and oyster colonies beneath his studious fingers, before they started to turn parts in a Colorado factory. And he imagined the other guys who'd produced those other complicated parts for the corporate aircrafts his dad flew. While his mom pulled straight the braided pigtails of his two elder sisters in the house she'd kept for them. College was not his thing then. GPA fluctuations being absurd, unlike the combat missions in Iraq that multiplied beyond 300 for the U.S. infantry he joined. Till June 2007, when the IED detonated his Humvee, its belly vomiting fire and shrapnel, his brain exploding algae and oysters and exotic flowers and all the carefully handled factory parts he'd forgotten. He scooped up all those pieces of himself, finding them surprisingly intact. And he struggled toward that Zen state of absolute zero. Even if the metallic shards beneath the Iraqi sun. The squirmy pink flowers behind his eyelids wouldn't quite add up to what he might have wanted to see in their place. He succumbed to the gray gravitational pull of college classrooms at IUPUC, like the lid peeled back from the bloodshot eyeball of the sun. Now he sweats beneath a different kind of sun in Brown County, Indiana. A zipline guide whose intact fingers fondled the burnt grasses, the shivering leaves, the unnameable petals and insects, pearly perspiration beads dropping from the pent-up pen, carefully scrawling haiku verse, zooming in and out of poetry workshop sessions throughout cold pandemic months. Thank you, and if you liked what you heard, I'll be doing some poetry on demand in the tent in front of us, and I'll also be reading again at 2:30.
James Dorr's The Tears of Isis was a 2013 Bram Stoker Award finalist for fiction collection. With his latest book, Tombs, a chronicle of latter-day times of Earth, a novel and stories from Elder Signs Press. Specializing in dark fantasy and horror, he currently harbors a goth cat named Triana and counts among his major influences Ray Bradbury, Edgar Allan Poe, Allen Ginsberg, and Bertolt Brecht. For more information, Dorr can be reached on his blog at http://James Dorr Ryder, that's all one word, James Dorr, JAMESDORR Ryder.wordpress.com. James Dorr.
Howdy. Well, this was my stand-up, so I also had two poems in the Ryder, which I'll read first. They're somewhat humorous horror, a little satirical, maybe even cynical for one. So the first of these is called Don't Always Believe Everything You Read. Subtitled with the New Hampshire state motto, live free or die. It never was free, the zombie explained. Not when I was alive. And I'm not talking taxes. Taxes are something you pay for good government, something that's not in the Constitution, not as a guarantee, but as a sort of good you have to work for. But such things as food, shelter, the things that one needs for life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, things our forefathers fought for from the British, things that should be free. In my experience, these have to be paid for. Food, sure, there's the occasional blackberry that you might find in the woods in season, but for serious eating, to live, you still have to go to the supermarket. Ever wonder why markets like that got cash registers in it? And shelter, you either pay rent or you've bought it. Even the clothes on your back cost you money, not like us zombies where people don't mind if you shamble past naked, especially after you've gnawed out their brains. Being dead's cheap enough, but living free, sorry, that's bucks on the barrel head. It's in the money, and God we trust. All others pay cash. And perhaps a bit more cultural in a Shakespearean vein. This is the vampirist soliloquy. To bite or not to bite, that was her choice. Whether it was better that she take this man to be her date or meal, to trade the promise of a night's roll in the hay, for metaphorically her bowl served as a roll, a hot dinner on a plate. The choice was hers. Slice, slice, damn bread. In other words, to see him as fast food, a nip in throat, or wrist to bring his blood to well forth free and bubbling redness, lap with life tongue's end, or use that tongue instead to explore his, to carry her seduction to its end in bed or coffin. But might then his fear see him on mine, for her love's labor lost, the night hours wasted, and next day to sleep, perhaps to dream of empty stomach's plight. Aye, there's the nub, the hesitation's fault, when nature should within her take the fore, belie sweet words, sweet thoughts, take care instead of business, do those things a vampire must, despite his protestations of love, lust, her own enticements. For should not her teeth by any other name still be as short? So on a more serious note, my first solo chapbook many, many years ago was a set of poems about a dystopic city, a kind of place a normal person wouldn't even want to visit, called Towers of Darkness. Then some years later, I revisited that city, as it were, and wrote a group of 6 more poems about the Towers of Darkness, and sent them to one of the earlier horror e-magazines. It's called Gothic Net. They published a poem a week. And they liked these well enough that they published me for 6 weeks in a row. So this is a mini chapbook from Towers of Darkness, 3 dogs. It's bon appetit. These are things the crows eat that dwell in the city. Insects they find on streets, cowering in alleys, the metal-winged beetles, the moths and the fireflies, night wasps and acid ants, red, their fangs glistening. The army worms, centipedes, fat, poisoned spiders, cast-off fruit and produce bursting with seeds and rot, other birds' eggs and rats, these themselves food questing, human dead's ruined eyes. This is one of the city's upstanding citizens. It's Anchuk by daylight. She sleeps in a coffin bed, not for need always, but protecting beauty. She knows she shines brightest in nighttime's glared neon. She knows she moves swiftest to jazz sounds, hot blaring, white flesh pressed against its prey, jet black hair tumbling. She knows she wakes hottest when tongue licking others' teeth, her own sharp pointed. She dances taut, lips breathing, ruby red sweetnesses, sugar spun promises, blood splash. She drinks it all. She knows she sleeps sound when outside the morning stirs, noise drowning out dreams, shouts, memories regretting. This is nocturnal. Carry-on dances under a dark moon, its thinnest of phases and dreams of a new lust, of blood pulsing callous veins, beating to oboes moan, bursting to throats filled to drench, once more longing that flesh alone cannot sate, soul alone cannot tame. Dig we must. Make no mistake, marble beds are lonely, the weight of earth heavy, oppressive, the climate dank. Musty the odors are, yet one makes friends sometimes with worms and beetles, one's inner self better half, animate anyhow. One comes to terms with rats, other earth dwellers, until all enhancing, enlarging the tunnel ways, so honeycombing the ground beneath mourners, one may yet gain company. It's this rat girl. She swam, she splashed, ate, made love, she of the sewers, she, the earth dweller beneath the dark city, she, friend of the coffin's prey, newest of residents, helpmeet to bone carvers, instrument makers, she played their flutes softly and dreamed of the air above. And finally, the sisters. Soul stealers, ravens swoop past black glass towers, coursing the canyons of basalt and marble, the city's high avenues, while hearing their carrion call, ground-based and inside, selecting her night togs, deep-cut gowns, jewelry, and Chuck smiles and answers. And we're running early. I have one more poem I was going to read. This is the Labor Day weekend, and traditionally that marks the end of summer. So, in the memory of the summer just passed, this is a poem called Summer Cancellations. The living is easy, but dying easier in its way. The afternoon nap from which one never rises, a poolside drowning, the flash of a knife over nighttime beer. Yet of all summer deaths, my favorite is that in the garden, when weeds fecund run instantly riot and cover the farmer, sucking his flesh until skin hangs dry, leaching the calcium out of bone until only a husk of bandana overalls marks where he lies.